Word up, poetry fans. The poetry books have just been piling up. I just keep on reading them, keep on thinking about poetry and starting my day with poetry instead of reading the news or engaging with social media. I'll just read some poetry before work. Y'all, what am I reading? I just finished W.H. Auden, City Without Walls and Other Poems. This is a late collection from Auden. It's from the late 60s. It maybe just is where they threw together a bunch of his later stuff, so it's a little uneven. It doesn't have this beautiful arc or anything like maybe some other poetry books. However, I think the title poem to this book was really cool. The actual City Without Walls, which starts this collection. It's about 5 pages long. It was really good and maybe worth the whole book. The other thing that makes this book worth it for me is this section called Marginalia, which is just a whole bunch of little mini poems, almost like haiku. They're separated by 3 asterisks in each one. Let me read a couple of these to you so you can get a feel. In the intervals between bathing and tennis, he sought new allies. And one more of my favorite ones here of these Marginalia, which is many pages of this stuff. Another entire day wasted. What is called for? The whip, pills, patience. Published by Random House, City Without Walls and Other Poems, W.H. Auden. Now, hey, something really recent. So sometimes I check out the competition. I'm a public school teacher who writes poetry, and there's a contest that Gunpowder Press puts on. They're out of Santa Barbara, California, and they put on this Dryland Vreeland Book Prize, which is for teachers that struggle underneath the college level, for teachers that just toil away in the trenches underneath the college level. And this old boy, Christopher Blackman, who lives on the outskirts of Boston, won the award in 2024. So I wanted to check out the competition, and wow, he's great, really great. I really enjoyed this book. It's called 3-Day Weekend. Just came out in 2024. Christopher Blackman. Let me just read one of them that I liked. I liked a whole bunch of these. My mom liked it as well. She left all these little comments all over these poems. All right, here's one called Denmark at Twilight. And I guess at this poem, at the end, it sort of sprinkles in some one-liners that leave the reportage of this beginning. You know, there's a type of poetry that actually Anne Waldman talks about. I've been reading Anne Waldman and some interviews with her. She talks about how one type of poetry is this reportage where you're just clearly stating exactly what you're seeing. And this poem starts, I think, in this reportage, but then it sort of veers into this area where he's sprinkling in some other stuff. And I'd argue that these two elements together makes this a successful poem. And he does this strategy in several poems. He's quite good with this. It's called Denmark at Twilight. I am drinking in a bar called Denmark that overlooks the convention center, where a man enters with his date, throws his arms to their full length, gestures across the expanse, and exclaims, "Welcome to my family's property." I try to imagine the type of person who'd be impressed by this kind of boast, though, to be fair, the date's not impressed. She twists every pearl on her necklace, shifting her weight as she says, "Oh, wow." And they take the egg chairs next to mine because this is that kind of place, you see. The only time she doesn't seem bored is when she's talking about the difference between the U.S. and Paris, where she lived for 6 months. She tells him like a book report, so much that when she's done, one might want to say, Heidi, thank you so much for your thoughts on France. Whenever I have thought about infinity, I have worried that it will feel like this. Like being left alone in the car, at the store, with only your mind to keep you occupied. Things should change. A man is given a watch at the end of a career to mark his retirement. A duckling becomes a duck and is covered in plum sauce. I buy toilet paper no matter what romantic city I call my home. And I'm sure that heaven will be no exception. I find a real sense of humor in this book, some great attention to detail. I mean, attention to detail, every poet needs to be doing that. And being able to get lyric and in the moment when you want, and being able to expand out and get general. I mean, that's just basic poetry stuff, to zoom in, zoom out, great. But this poet also adds some humor, I think, and as I reread some of these poems, there's some humor in here. 3-Day Weekend, Christopher Blackman. That's some of the stuff that I've been reading, people. Read some poetry, man.